Welcome to the 2023 Ossining Public Library Annual Meeting and Report to the Community. I'm Karen LaRocca-Fels. I'm the Director of the Ossining Public Library, and thank you so much for coming today to celebrate with us. Every year, we like to take this opportunity to reflect on the highlights of the year and celebrate our community who is so supportive of our library. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the evening. To start us off, I would like to ask our library president, Amanda Curley, to come up.
Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to introduce my fellow trustees who are on the board. So, if you're in the audience, please stand. Alice Joslow, Shambi Speller, Cecilia Quintero, Megan, and Alfima Goodson. Thank you. They are great people and work very hard. Now, I'm going to have a short speech for you. As I thought about my speech tonight, I fell into a memory. My memory of going to the library as a young child. I remember walking through a lovely green garden, down brick steps to the glass-paneled library door, holding on to the metal handle of the door, and seeing the librarian, Miss Epps, sitting at the desk all ready for me. So I thought. Everything was perfect, from the dark wood bookcases to the child-sized oak desks. And Miss Epps just knew exactly what you needed and would let you know where you could find it. The library in this rural farming town was my heaven. Probably many of you have an early library memory that takes you someplace special. Your someplace could have been here in Ossining, or possibly another part of the country. Maybe your library was somewhere abroad. Yet here we are now. Many persons from a variety of backgrounds together today, sharing as a community a special space in the Ossining Library, our library. Our library is a community which has the mission to enrich, connect, and inspire those of the community. The vision is to be the community's center for lifelong learning. A few years ago, the board and the director asked, how are we going to meet our mission, our vision, when we are a community of locals, migrants, and immigrants from diverse cultures and customs and socioeconomic backgrounds? How do we become the center, grounded in recognizing, addressing, and celebrating all members of the community? To answer that question, the board, library director, staff, and community members came together and designed a long-range plan focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. While we have brought our plan to your attention in the past, I'm taking this moment to remind all of us of it tonight. Built on a framework of 6 guiding pillars, the foundation of our strategic planning vision is diversity, celebrating, understanding, and representing the differences of all cultures. Equity, meeting people where they are, offering what they need, and removing barriers to ensure equal access. Inclusion, creating a sense of belonging and involvement for all community members. We use this plan as a roadmap for the library's future, with the aim of continuing the transformation of the library into a center for community engagement and education, where all are welcomed, engaged, and belong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Every year, we are so fortunate to have the support of the Friends of the Ossining Public Library. I'd like to ask Dennis Newberger, President of the Friends of the Ossining Public Library, to share some of the highlights from the Friends and to announce the Friends Scholarship winners.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for attending, and also I want to thank Karen and her staff and Molly for all the help you have given the Friends and guidance. I'd like to thank my team. From last year, the VP, Nancy Woodwin, but this year she has a more important assignment, being a grandmother to a beautiful little baby boy, Noah. And my team for this year, Nancy Panagakos, Vice President, Bonnie Sikorsky, Secretary, and Michelle Tagg is the Treasurer. They do a phenomenal job in getting everything organized. I want to thank all the volunteers who have come out and assisted us with sorting books, getting book donations ready, assisting at the book sales and community events. Our recent book sale brought in $1,423. The volunteers, if you were using a labor assessment, last year saved us $17,630. And year-to-date this year is $4,395. So again, thank you. The Friends of the Library is a dedicated team of volunteers who work to raise funds to supplement the library's budget for programs and promotional materials, services, and facility improvements. The past 3 years, the Friends have been able to give $52,772 in funding for the library's mission. Museum passes, this year we added Stepping Stone Museum for children in Norwalk, Connecticut, and parking hang tabs for T-Town. The passes are available on the wall opposite to the right of the checkout desk. Some of the things that we did: new parent and infant support group, promotional materials and children's room toys and literacy tote bags, renovation of the Robert Goodenough painting and new carpeting for the theater and for the teen room, and outdoor tables. We're always looking for members. Please check the Friends section of the library website to become a member, donate, and volunteer. Right now we have 115 members. And every year, the Friends award scholarship for high school students who are library pages. And this year we have 2 scholarships. Is Hope Funk here? Each one of the applicants write a summary, and Hope really enjoyed helping children and being involved in the activities in the library that help children. So Friends, we are proud to offer you this. Thank you very much. Is Joseph Ballatoni here? In his summary, he said the library gave a great impression of the workforce. He said the staff was very helpful, very courteous. And I know one thing, when I was at IBM, we used to have the high school co-op program. And I'd interview students who were going into college but we were able to find them a job in something like accounting, and in many cases they said that was their degree, but in some cases they wanted to make changes. So I think this program that the library offers is a phenomenal opportunity and a big help to seniors who are making decisions. So on behalf of the friends, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. We are also fortunate to have the support of the Ossining Library Foundation, and I'd like to ask the Foundation Chair, Leslie Allen, to join us to share some highlights from the Foundation.
Hi. Thanks to everyone who comes tonight and helps us celebrate the library. It means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to everyone that's involved with the library. I am Leslie Allen. I'm chair of the Ossining Library Foundation Board. The purpose of the Foundation Board is to enhance and enrich the services of the library. We have right now 4 members, and so I would like to introduce the other 3. I think 2 are here at least. Of course, these glasses are not those glasses. I believe, is Marlene Cheatham here? I don't think so, right? Pam Thornton, can you wave and be friendly to everybody? Yeah. Steve Alpert. He had to step out. Well, you're going to see him later, so don't worry about that. I would like to thank some of our local friends who have been really helpful to us. Megan Huppick, who is a board member of the trustees, comes to all of our meetings, has been very supportive of us and really helpful. And also Rochelle Udell, who has helped us as we work on our mission statement. And I just want to mention her because oh, there she is. Wave, Rochelle. So everybody thank Rochelle for her time. Thank you. So our purpose is to fundraise and to fund give. We do this, we fundraise through events, solicitations, live, online. A past example was, I was going to point to the piano, it's not there, and tell you that we raised $12,000 for that, largely online, to refurbish the piano, which is an essential part of making this theater a part of our community so that everybody can come and use it. So we're really, really proud about that. That was the first thing we did. We recently supported the Bonnie Katz film series. We were granted a large gift by the David Swope Fund, and the foundation's presence made that gift possible. If the foundation didn't exist, we would have been off the radar. So it's really important to have the foundation be up, robust, running, to be able to receive a gift like that. Some examples of what we've been able to do with the David Swope Fund, I can't even give all of them. Early literacy program, the baby bundles, the David Swope Learning Center, Teen Writing Center, career readiness and entrepreneurship for teens, career pathing and job readiness, programming for new Americans, library social worker. Yeah, those are some of them. So I think you'd be hard-pressed not to know about one of those programs. We are able to fund programs in real time. We are outside of the budget that everybody votes on, and thank you for voting on our budget every year. It passes, with bells on every year because Ossining so supports the library, but we're able to fund things that aren't supported by that budget, and especially things that come up during the year that we have to wait for a budget to vote on. Really important for the library, especially during things like COVID, where we had to come up with new solutions for things. We also fund and will fund and are looking forward to some of the structural changes to the building as we learn about our community and respond to the community's needs. I just want to say that we are looking forward to working with the library and the Board of Trustees in funding future projects. And I'd like a little shout out to Alice Joslow, because we came up with this lifelong learning, I believe that was her, and we're here to support lifelong learning in every way that we can. We are embarking on a 2025 event. We're going to build towards that from now through 2024. We would invite anyone that would like to be part of a planning for a fundraising event that celebrates the library, has some fun here. There'll be more about that in the fall, but if anybody's interested in working on an event for the library, please let me know. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Leslie. For the past 13 years, we have honored the memory of Riley Saper, a library patron and voracious reader, with the Riley Saper Voracious Reader Award. This award is given annually to a child who embodies a love of reading and literature. Right now, I'd like to welcome Jeff Saper, Riley's father. Jeff will be presenting the award to this year's winner.
I want to thank Karen and the staff for continuing to do this every year. It means a lot to our family. Would have meant a lot to Riley because he was indeed a voracious reader. Tragedy is what you make of it. He passed away 13 years ago, just last week, and he would have been 26 years old. What we've done over the last years is some college scholarships. Just last month, we raised $130,000 for pediatric cancer research, all in his name and in his honor, and we will continue to do that for the rest of our lives. Reading was important. I still have his Kindle reading list from when he was in the hospital. He was gifted a Kindle, and he would be reading even right to the last minute. It was very important to him. And so I'm honored to be able to give, please, I hope I pronounce this correctly, this award for this year to Sophia Magalhães.
Thank you, Jeff, and congratulations, Sophia. Every year, we recognize a volunteer who has embodied a spirit of service and a dedication to our library and our community. I would like to ask our Head of Team Services, Susie Zavarella, to the stage to award this year's honor.
Thanks, Karen. Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege and honor to present the Volunteer of the Year Award to Steve Albert, a man who exemplifies the spirit of service to his community. Steve has been a dedicated volunteer math tutor here since 2016. He came to us asking how he could help the students of Ossining with math, and we just happened to have a math tutoring program, and I needed another tutor. And he has been here ever since. He listens to all my crazy ideas. He goes with them until they don't work, and then he says, well, let's try it this way, Susie, and let's try it that way. And he is just a real pleasure to work with. He's patient, he's flexible, and he's passionate about seeing the Ossining students excel in mathematics. And recently, Steve has become an integral part of the Library Foundation. He oversees donations, funding, and tax filings. As the foundation treasurer, Steve has worked to elevate the foundation's profile. Through his efforts, the foundation is listed on GuideStar. Now, I had no idea what GuideStar was, so I looked it up, and it's a place where people go to make sure that monies that they're donating are to legitimate nonprofit organizations. He's also made it easier to donate to the Ossining Library Foundation by setting up a Venmo account. Yay, Steve. No more banks. Boom, right off your phone. And then through strategic investments, Steve's expanded the foundation's operating budget. So he is awesome. I am very happy to present him with this Volunteer of the Year award. And just tonight, so Steve's coming here to be here. And we had a kid whose mom said, "Can you please help with math?" Steve couldn't make it, gave me a list of advice for the student, and was willing to set up a Zoom meeting if necessary. I mean, he's the best.
Thank you, Susie, and congratulations, Steve. We are so lucky to have a dedicated staff who really and truly make it happen every day here at the Ossining Public Library. This year we have a number of employees who have reached employment milestones, and we would like to recognize them. Althema Goodson was going to help us present these milestone awards, but she also was worried that she wasn't going to be able to make it, so I've asked Cecilia Quintero to help me give these awards tonight. So if Cecilia would come up. And as Cecilia says the names of our employees, I'm going to ask those who are here to come up, get your certificate, and stay up here because we're going to have a lovely photo op for everyone.
Okay. It has been a real honor to support the leadership of Karen LaRocca-Fels and this amazing institution with the incredible employees, programming and events that you guys just produce all the time. And it is my sincere privilege to just honor those who are having milestone anniversaries this evening. So please remain on stage until we get photographs of all of you in the evening. Our first honoree is Anthony Apollonio, 10 years.
I think he might be working in the building.
Okay, the next person on the list, she's not with us this evening, but her name is Lydia Aulestia Recalde, 10 years. I also want to acknowledge Deborah Bracy Harris, 15 years. Lisa Eckler, 5 years. Sambul Faridi, 5 years. Deborah Fletcher, 15 years. You're braver than I am. Chris Gleason, 15 years. Amy Gutierrez, 15 years. Julian Marmot, 5 years rather. Congratulations. Susan McCormick, 25 years. Marian Moreno, 15 years. I know this honoree. Guillermo Rodriguez, 15 years. Kevin Robinson, 10 years. 20 years. Trisha Sabini, 15 years. Michelle Thomas, 15 years. Last but not least, Susie Savarella, 15 years. Thanks for your service. Thank you, everybody.
So I'll move this way just a little bit.
Congratulations, everyone. Okay. And we're now at the point in the program where I'm going to go over some highlights from this past year and share some of the things that we've been up to. Throughout the past years, our community partnerships have remained strong and help us provide the best service that we can to all parts of our community. We are fortunate to have a community that really loves this library, and they let us know regularly. Speaking of love, this year was our first ever library wedding marriage proposal, which is very exciting for us. We went into the community a lot this year. Here we have library staff members Diana Lennon and Vicente Mari, both of whom are here tonight, at the Ossining Farmers Market, meeting County Executive George Latimer. We continue to plan new and innovative programs and engage our community. Lots of programs. Lots and lots of programs. Both inside of the library building and out in the community, and we had so much fun. And now I'll share with you some of the highlights from the fiscal year. The Ossining Library Foundation was fortunate to receive a substantial gift from the David Swope Fund. And we are working on putting together programs and services to use this funding. We've been providing, Leslie mentioned many of them, career coaching workshops, creative writing classes, ESOL classes, early literacy programs. We're working on plans to install an early learning center in the children's room that will support educational programming for elementary age children. And we have plenty more programs and services in the works with this funding. We had a lot of firsts this year too. We had our first ever fall festival. Our building planned this festival. It was building wide, and the community absolutely loved it. We continue to plan for and provide robust technology infrastructure that allows us to meet the technology needs of our community. For the, I think, third or fourth year in a row, we've gotten federal E-rate funding, which allows us to upgrade our technology infrastructure in our building, replacing old cabling with new cabling, adding drops where we need them, and it supports our broadband as well. We also started offering tech tutoring for the public very recently, which has really taken off and is very popular, and will continue to support and expand this service. With the acquisition of New York State grant funds and money raised by the Ossining Library Foundation, we have been able to add some much needed spaces inside the library. We've added offices for the teen services staff on the second floor, which will bring them in closer proximity to where the teenagers actually are in the building on the second floor. We've added 2 small study rooms to the second floor in order to meet the very high demand for quiet study and meeting spaces. And we've also added a conference room on the first floor to help meet the strong demand for meeting and program space in the library. And we hope to open these spaces up during the summer. If you go in the building, you can actually see the walls have been put up and what it's going to look like. We have a little bit more work to do, but we are moving right along. And I'm happy to say that we're now a 12-time winner of Best of Westchester Award. We are really proud of that. This year, we've been voted the 2023 Best Library and the Best Children's Library. And I'd also like to give you a little update on our long-range strategic plan. Amanda mentioned our plan in her remarks, and I'll give you some updates on what we've been working on. Our first pillar is shared financial accountability. We committed to augment our budget by supporting the Friends of the Ossining Library and the Ossining Library Foundation in their efforts to raise funds on behalf of the library. And we are also committed to sustain and increase grant funding. I'm really happy to say that over the last 7 years, we've gotten a lot of grant funding, funding that comes through our friends, funding that comes through our foundation to support those services and programs. And we continue to apply for grant funding wherever we can. We committed to diversify our collections, programs, and services. We did a very small snapshot analysis of our programming recently and found that about 30% of our programming this year had an intentional focus on diversity. We've also undertaken an extensive collection audit for all of our library collections in the adult, teen, and children's departments, and we continue to purchase materials that reflect and celebrate our diverse community. We're committed to support and diversify our staff, board, and volunteers. In order to support our front desk staff and to work cross-departmentally, we combined 4 of our departments. This was a massive undertaking. Circulation, technical services, marketing and communications, and technology into one department that we call patron services. This not only provides a more holistic approach to providing frontline service, but supports the staff in that department, giving them more opportunities for growth. This spring, our staff embarked on an intensive training program on diversity, equity, and inclusion with Hummingbird Humanity, an organization that specializes in this training from a human approach. And this training is continuing over the summer. We committed to sustain relationships with all parts of Greater Ossining. Our staff love to go outside of our building and meet our community where they are. Between classroom visits, community events, and off-site programs, our staff love to bring the library to the people. And I actually think this 150 outreach event number is low. That was an estimate. We committed to a physical transformation of our library building and infrastructure. Some of these changes you can see, such as the installation of our new modular spaces for meeting rooms, and some of these changes are invisible to the eye, but are just as important, such as improving our technology infrastructure and planning much-needed building repairs and improvements in the coming years. We committed to improving our brand and image to make the library more accessible and welcoming. And we now have a new logo and a new, easier-to-use program and events calendar, which also lets community members request meeting spaces on their own online. And we have more to come. We have had a very busy and very inspiring year, but we couldn't do what we do without the support of our Ossining community. We are fortunate to serve a community that truly loves its library. Thank you for all that you do to help us be the best library that we can be. Now we are at the point in our program that I think many of you have been patiently waiting for. I have been patiently waiting for it too. I'm so excited. I'd like to introduce to you Scott Craven, who I think you all pretty much know. He's the co-author of Croton Point Park, Westchester's Jewel on the Hudson, 2022, and a frequent speaker about wildlife and human impact on the environment. As the former historian of the town of Ossining and an avid fisherman, paddler, and cyclist, he knows our area better than most. Over the years, he has connected with many people whose passion and expertise regarding different aspects of the Hudson River Valley have helped us weave its history into a compelling story. Scott is a retired Ossining police captain, currently works at the Ossining Public Library. We're so lucky. He is a graduate of Pace University and has a master's in American history from Western Connecticut State University. His master's thesis focused on an environmental history of the geographically and culturally rich area along the Hudson River.
Thank you so much. While Jimmy's switching this over, we'll just have a couple words. So my name's Scott Craven. I'll be talking tonight. If you've ever heard me talk before, you know that I prefer to have a conversation than lecture. So if you've got something to add, let's hear it. If you disagree with me, that's okay too. Let's hear it. One of the reasons I love doing things like this is I learn so much myself. So by all means, if you have something to say, let's hear it. If Jimmy doesn't mess this up, we'll start in 1 second. Yes. Hey ho, okay, we're in business. Tonight we're talking about what? Okay. Everybody in Ossining comes from someplace else. Everybody. Through immigration or migration. They came here. Tonight we're going to talk about immigration. Migration is also a big topic. Migration is folks who came here from within our country. Immigration means folks who came here from outside the country. The circumstances between the two different migration and immigration, they appear the same here in Ossining, but the circumstances around them are so different, it's really unfair to put them in the same program. So tonight I'm going to talk about immigration. So I love doing this. One of the reasons I love doing this, oh, by the way, quick question. Susie, what's the difference between a colonist and an immigrant?
A colonist and an immigrant?
A colonist and an immigrant.
Well, an immigrant chose to come here. I don't know what the difference between a colonist and
That's because it's a trick question. There is no difference between a colonist and an immigrant.
came here too.
The only difference is the colonist wrote the history book and the immigrant is in it. But that's the only difference between a colonist and an immigrant. And one of the reasons I like doing this, to show you what kind of a nerd I am and how cool I am, one of the reasons I like doing this is when I get prepared for something like this, I always come up with some new words. And I think that's kind of cool. Like I said, that's how cool I am. So coming up for this presentation tonight, endonym, exonym, demonym, and shibboleth. I kind of knew what a shibboleth was, but not really. Had no clue as to the others. But they're important for what we're going to talk about tonight. An endonym is what a group of people call themselves. The group of indigenous folks who live in Arizona refer to themselves as the Diné. The 6 tribes in upstate New York refer to themselves as Haudenosaunee. An exonym is what other people call them. We call them the Navajo and the Iroquois. Traditionally, an exonym is pejorative, and it comes from often an enemy. So be careful. A demonym is the name of a group of people by where they live. If you live in Italy, you're an Italian. That's a demonym. If you live in Ossining, you're a Ostingite? Ostingite? Ostingite, Terrytowner. If you live in Croton, you're a crouton. So that's a demonym. Shibboleth. Shibboleth is a biblical reference to a word, sometimes it's difficult to pronounce, that lets people know that you're part of the group, like a password. If you go to New York City and someone asks you where Houston Street is, you know they're not from New York. Houston Street's a shibboleth. If you refer to a long sandwich with meatballs in it as a meatball wedge, you're from Ossining, Peekskill, Tarrytown. And that's it in the whole world. And I can tell you that because when you go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you go to college, and you go into the pizzeria and you order a meatball wedge, they give you a slice of pizza. So, meatball wedge is us. My wife thinks I'm a townie because I call it Route 100, not Route 100. Those are all shibboleths, and we all have them. You know, I talk to a lot of people about immigration. And one of the reasons we talk to them is we want people to know, because it's got to be difficult coming here. Sometimes you feel different. Sometimes language is an issue. You might look different. You don't fit in. It's important for people to understand that we were all immigrants. We were all immigrants. I know it looks like my grandfather was on the Half Moon with Henry Hudson. He wasn't. Here is the cultural center of the Western Hemisphere. This is Digby, Nova Scotia. Population around 600. That's where my family's from. About 130 years ago, we came over to Maine to pick apples. And then just went down to the tropics to Springfield and stayed. We didn't bother with Ellis Island. Any of that stuff. I'm an immigrant, just like everybody else is. I will say this, I love talking to people about their family stories coming here. But one of the things you got to be sensitive to is the fact that, like, I'll talk about Digby, Nova Scotia all day long. I'll tell you, I'm thrilled that I was named after Scott Craven from Digby, Nova Scotia, and not his brother, Burpee Craven from Digby, Nova Scotia. You'll never hear me talk about my mother's side of my family because we don't talk about that. Sometimes families, you know, now with genealogy and 23andMe, we're finding out a lot more about our family than we ever knew. And sometimes it's not so cool. But that's okay. I'm just saying when you speak to people about where they come from and their families, be respectful of the fact that not everybody wants to talk about it. Why is Ossining different? Ossining is very much an immigrant community, very much. The police spoke 9 languages. There's only 64 police officers there. They spoke 9 languages. Of course, the big joke, one of them wasn't written English, but that's not actually true. St. Anne's is currently doing Mass in 4 languages. They used to do Mass in 5 languages. Immigrants, in 2010, the U.S. Census Bureau identified a new trend in immigration. Immigrants were no longer coming to the cities, they were going directly to the suburbs. That is nothing new here. People have always been coming directly here. For jobs. Surprisingly, not for jobs at Sing Sing, the largest employer in the village. Ossining and New York City are inexorably entwined. One cannot exist without the other. I know we like calling people city people and, you know, things like that. And I know I have friends in the city that think I live in upstate New York. Or I called a guy in the Warrant Squad once. I said, hey, come up, pick your guy up. He goes, Ossining? What's that, like 3 trees from Canada? I said, no, I can see New York City out the window. We're right here. So I know there's always the bridge and tunnel crowd. I know there's always that relationship back and forth, the kind of anything. They cannot exist without each other. Anybody know Old Saybrook, Connecticut? Lovely town at the mouth of the Connecticut River. My mom lives there. It's not New York City. It never will be. Because the Connecticut River, the valley, isn't navigable. So it couldn't develop. You have to have both. And Ossining and the infrastructure associated with the big city to the south is why we became an immigrant community. Why do people come here? For jobs. Because we were creating a massive infrastructure for New York City. New York City, the web that goes out from it to supply it on a daily basis is unbelievable. I mean, just the water system alone
almost defies imagination. And it all had to be built a long time ago, usually with stone, and usually without the aid of machines. In the 1830s, New York City was dying. It was dying of cholera, and it was dying of fire. And it needed two things, or it was going to be Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Now, that's a bad thing, but it's not New York City. It needed water, and it needed a cheap, durable building material that was fire resistant, and it got both of them right here. And if it hadn't been for that effort, back in the 1840s, New York City wouldn't be the city it is today. So it came up here and they started building this infrastructure. They built the 1842 Croton Aqueduct, right down here, our famous double arch. If you haven't had an opportunity to go into the Weir Chamber, I highly suggest you do. The Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct runs tours of it. They're free. It's fantastic. 42 miles long. Stone. It drops 13 and 1/4 inches every mile. They achieved that for over 40 miles with no electricity. They did it all with hand tools. They didn't even have dynamite then. It's an incredible thing. The 1848, up there to the left, our railroad system goes up in 1848. It's by the same guy that puts in the aqueduct. And down there, the new Croton Dam. They start building in the 1890s. Had to happen. Had to happen. And people had to build it. People had to build it. We not only have one aqueduct in Ossining, we actually have two. There are two Croton aqueducts. The 1842 Croton Aqueduct and the 1890 Croton Aqueduct. The new Croton Aqueduct, the big Croton Aqueduct, the one they still use. That's on the east side of town. That goes under Ryder Park, about 400 feet down. You never know it. You drive over it every single day. It is a critical part of the infrastructure of New York City. It had to be built by hand, 400 feet down. Unbelievable. Let's start at the beginning. People are learning more and more about the folks that were here a long time ago than they ever have. A lot of it through DNA, a lot of it through their ability to carbon date things like seeds and pollen. So what they could essentially do now is they could date dirt. They just found 22,000-year-old footprints in White Sands National Monument. Probably about 6,000 years older than they thought was possible. They're finding out more and more through science all the time. We, as a species, leave Africa, go through Europe and Asia, cross the land bridge and come here, and about 15, 16,000 years ago, the first person walks up South Island Avenue. But it didn't look like South Island Avenue. It had just been wiped clean by the glacier. I mean, wiped clean. There wasn't even a blade of grass. That's how empty this slate was to be filled by people. Nothing. And as the glacier retreated, people came up and filled that vacuum. When I was in school, we learned a lot about Native Americans, that's what we called them then. And I thought I was a pretty knowledgeable guy, know what happened before, Henry Hudson showed up in 1609. The reality of it is, they were latecomers. They showed up at the very end. There were people here 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years before they were. Right here in Ossining. They have found lithic points at the Piping Rock site that date back 8,000 years. 7,000 years before the Algonquins showed up. I'm not supposed to say where it is. I only tell you that it rhymes with Mystic Point on North Island Avenue. But that's where they found it. If you go at the Mariondale today, if you go tomorrow and walk along that trail on the top of and you walk along, there'll be a bunch of oyster shells, you kick them out of the way. Isn't that cool? They went to Home Depot and got some oyster shells to decorate this path. Those were put there by a human, thrown into a garbage pile, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. And we're kicking them out of the way, and they're everywhere. What did these folks look like? Well, if you're like me, you thought they looked like that. They didn't look like that. And then you hope they look like this. They didn't look like this either. No fur bikinis, no dinosaurs. They were gone 40 million years before we showed up. By the way, if that looks familiar, that's what Andy Dufresne covered his hole in the Shawshank Redemption with. And they gave these guys grief. The Geico caveman. The reality of it is, they were smarter than us. They were hunter-gatherers. They knew what, they had larger brains and were smarter than we were. Back then, if you didn't pull your weight in this small group, you were cut from the team. And I mean, cut from the team. You had to be good. You had to be smart. And they were. And they survived here under conditions that defy imagination. What they look like? They probably look like this. This is from the New York State Museum. That's from a site in Dutchess County, or Orange County. That is the Hudson Highlands in the background. They are hunter-gatherers. They lived right here in Ossining. And if you'll notice, the guy's got a long stick. And on the end of that stick is a little teeny rock. And that little teeny rock is really, really sharp. And that little teeny piece of stone is the reason he comes here and wipes out the megafauna in North America. When he goes after wildlife that makes our wildlife today look like house pets. 13-foot tall elephants, ground sloths, 400-pound beavers, lions and tigers with teeth down to here. He took them on, not with a bow and arrow. They didn't have bow and arrows for a long time. He took them on with a spear and a little teeny piece of rock. And he conquered them all and survived and thrived here. It's an incredible story. I mean, hopefully we'll know more about it. But if you ever get a chance to learn about it, you go to the Croton Point Nature Center. They have a lot of the artifacts up there. They're very knowledgeable about it. It's really cool. It's an incredible story. Imagine people right here. You know, there's very few mammoth finds in New York State. There are a lot of mastodon, but mammoths are the really big ones. You know, we all know them. Giant, hairy elephants, long tusks, the whole drill. In 1961, they're building the Watson Center out here on Route 134. And they realize they're putting a giant IBM facility in the middle of nowhere. How are people going to get here every day? I know. Let's build an on-ramp and an off-ramp to Taconic State Parkway. It's right there. So they did in 1961. And a guy with an excavator went up there and pulled out a bone this big of a woolly mammoth that had been laid there in a bog for 13 or 14,000 years. Right here. It really is incredible. These are the guys we're most familiar with. Henry Hudson called them the River Indians. They called themselves the Lenape. The ones who were right here were called the Sink. The ones who were just north of here were the Kiktuwank. The reality of it is, we don't know for a fact that they were Lenape. All we know for a fact is they were Algonquin, and they spoke a language called Muncie. Like Muncie, New Jersey, Muncie, Indiana, that Muncie. That's how they differentiated the different groups back then, was by their languages. So we know the people who are here, Sink, were Algonquin and spoke a language called Muncie. In 1685, they were bought out by Frederick Phillips, and they were gone. They were gone. But they left a legacy. Yeah. Just the other day, a couple weeks ago, New York State came down with a law that said you can't do this. Ossining did that beforehand. I got to tell you, my kid's school up in Highland Falls was the Red Raiders. Unbelievable. It's a caricature. It's not actually historically accurate. It's kind of too bad that they couldn't have somehow used this in a manner to teach the kids about these folks instead of just being a symbol. I know it still is anger, makes some people angry. Not me. Then again, I wore one of these for 12 years on my shoulder before we got rid of it and got another patch for ourselves. That's a Plains Indian wearing a war bonnet It's got nothing to do with us, just the way it is. They were the Lenape. They were the Sinks. They spoke Munsee. They were enemies of the Haudenosaunee, you call them the Iroquois. They spread all the way down to New Jersey, and we kicked them out. Some of them went to Massachusetts. Most of them went out west, and we kept kicking them. Today, they are in Stockbridge, Munsee Reservation in Wisconsin. They're in Oklahoma. They're in Kansas. The exonym for them was the Delaware. We called them the Delaware. They were the Lenape, and we kicked them out, big time. There's one group left, the Rampo Lenape Nation, over in Mahwah, New Jersey. They walked back up into the hills, and they never left. Unfortunately, they've been subjected to some terrible stuff. There was a big case. They found out that Ford and Mahwah was dumping all their solvents there. Really horrible. There was all these terrible legends about them, that they were Hessian soldiers who had deserted the American Revolution, that they were all the prostitutes that were brought over by the English army. All not true. They used to refer to them, the exonym for them was the Jackson Whites. And that is a pejorative, racist term that you should not use. They call themselves the Rampo Lenape. They've gotten state acknowledgement down there, and they live just above Hillburn, New York, right on the Mahwah-Hillburn border. Not many of them, but they're it. The Dutch. The Dutch were only in charge for about 60 years, but they left a deep, deep cultural impact on us. We really live in a Dutch society, not an English one. We speak English and we have English laws, but we're hyper-local, we're all about money. We don't care who your parents were if you can make us money. That's Dutch, and that's not English. So in many respects, they really left a legacy here in our system of government and in our society, even though, in fact, they weren't here that long. Well, they were here, but they sure weren't in charge that long. They left us Santa Claus, skate, buoy, caboose, freight boss, Yankee, bazooka, iceberg, donut, stoop, and kill. They left us Peekskill, Tappan Zee, Brooklyn, and Yonkers. So they're on the roadsides every day. They came up in this thing, 1609, Henry Hudson. By the way, he stole that boat. He was being paid by the Netherlands to go above Russia. He left, said yeah, no, crossed, went into the Hudson River, came back, never returned to the Netherlands. There's a reason that the Dutch did not call it the Hudson River. The three rivers of the Dutch were the North, the South, and the Clear. The Hudson, the Delaware, and the Connecticut. First thing the English did when they took over is they renamed the North River the Hudson River, after the Englishman who was the employee of the Dutch. Now, I can tell you, there's a dangerous lunatic that wanders around town who's got a tattoo on his calf that says the North River, mumbles things about the Hudson River. Be careful of him. So there are people who know about the North River. Watch out for that guy. You see that symbol on the back? The half moon? That, to the Dutch, is what the Jolly Roger is to us. That was the symbol of the Dutch pirates, who played an important role when they overthrew Spain back in the 1600s. So when you see the half moon, think Jolly Roger. Where we are today, Phillipsburg Manor. All the way from the Bronx, all the way up to the Croton River. 81 square miles. Currently, the village of Ossining, by comparison, is 3.24 square miles. They had 81 square miles. Frederick Phillips. He was Dutch, but he bought the patent, was granted the patent by the English. This was a slave society. It was an economy based on slavery, and Frederick Phillips himself dealt in slaves, owned ships that went to Africa, and he sold them as well. a lot of people in the North, we can't believe what those Southerners did. Make no mistake about it. This was a slave economy right here. And when New York State finally outlawed slavery in 1827, they still allow people to come up and take fugitives back. They still allow you to bring your slaves up here from the South. And we profited from the slave trade all the way to the Civil War. Make no mistake about it. And Phillips was one of them. Civil War, American Revolution rolls around. Frederick Phillips bets on the wrong side. And when it's over, tough, you're out. He takes all this land, including where we're standing right now, and the new American Commissioner of Forfeiture sells it to make money for the new government, including where we are today. A lot of them are old lost names, Hunt and Bishop and Agate and things like that. That's where they got the land. Most of them were tenant farmers on Phillipsburg's Manor, but when he got thrown out, they just bought the farm they were on anyway and owned it. He got tossed. Today, if you get an opportunity to get down there, it's really worthwhile. The new Phillips Manor Hall in Yonkers is supposed to be excellent. I haven't seen it. They just put $20 million into it. They say it's really well done. And this is right down here in Sleepy Hollow. Also very cool. Yeah, you see it?
I've been to the Yonkers one. It is great.
Yeah.
Very interactive.
I heard that.
Yeah.
It's down at Warburton Avenue, and it doesn't talk just about the Dutch. It talks about everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get down there this summer. I hope you do too. What's the last vestigial remnant of the Dutchness around here? Well, here's Ossining's own Obi Toppin. Graduated Ossining High School. Hopefully he knows that the colors he's wearing are actually the 1625 colors of New Amsterdam. The Knicks wear the New York City colors. The New York City colors are based on New Amsterdam. There were a lot of English here, even during the Dutch colonies. As time goes on, the Irish show up, starting around 1830, and they come right here to start building the 1842 Croton Aqueduct. Brutal, backbreaking work. They come directly to Ossining, directly to the communities all along that pipeline. They were treated horribly. One of the reasons they left is because they were starving. Over 1 million people died in the Great Famine in Ireland in 1841. The whole time being, the English were exporting food out of Ireland. The English felt that they were starving because they weren't morally correct and didn't work hard. They were starving because they were dependent on a monoculture of potatoes that was wiped out. Over 1 million died, 1 million left. It's an unbelievable story. This is the Great Hunger Memorial down off the Sawmill River. Go down and see it. You know, you go up to it, it's a terrible picture. I went down to take a better picture today. It happens to be closed for construction. But you walk up to it, you're like, yeah, famine, skinny people. And you look in the back and you see what you think is a bunch of potatoes, and if you look closely, they're all human skulls. It's a pretty moving monument. It's worthwhile seeing. They come over here to build this, right here in Austin. You know Thomas Nast, who everybody likes talking about, invents the Republican elephant and things like that, Boss Tweed. Apparently he wasn't a fan of the Irish. They thought the Irish were subhumans. They hated them. They hated them. And the nativists really gave them business. In 1991, King's College went up for sale. A group called Terra Circle went in to buy it as an Irish cultural center. Now, I can't imagine people were happy because it would have been a nonprofit that wouldn't pay taxes. But there was a lot of ugly talk about the fact that it's bigotry. It's because they're Irish. And I know I was told that if you picked up a paper in Dublin, Ireland, Briarcliff would have been on the front page, and not in a good way. I don't know enough about it to say, but yeah, it was a thing. And then the post-Civil War, they really kind of imprint ourselves in our society Although famously, they don't have their first president until John F. Kennedy, they were great at small town politics, unionization, things like that. So it was all about the firemen, the police, the correctional officers, all patronage jobs doled out back then by local politicians, and a lot of them were Irish. In the 1960s, the Puerto Rican communities in the Bronx, the expression for the police was Lahada. Lahada, Lahada. They think that comes from O'Hara, because every cop seemed to be named O'Hara. Even Sing Sing Guards in 1941, during the breakout, the Sing Sing Guard that was killed before the guys got out and killed the Ossining police officer, his name was John Hartee. He still spoke with a brogue. He was so Irish and lived in the Bronx. Why is there no New Italy? There's New France, there's New Spain, there's New England, there's no New Italy, no New Germany either. Columbus, Verrazzano, Giovanni Caboto, John Cabot to his friends. They were a big part of the exploration. Why no colonization? Why weren't they here? Because they weren't a nation. Neither was Germany until the middle of the 1800s. Until the 1850s, Garibaldi comes along. It's a series of city-states. They don't particularly like each other. They considered you a paisan if you all could hear the same church bell. They didn't care if you lived on the other side of Italy. If you didn't hear the same church bell they did, you weren't part of my group. So there is no New Italy. Germany also. Germany doesn't become a nation until the middle of the 1800s. When I had a house up here on Prospect Avenue 20 years ago, my next door neighbor was from Italy. He didn't speak a word of English, and he wasn't alone. I stopped today at the deli up on Dale Avenue this morning to get a cup of coffee. The gentleman out front, he was talking to me about something. I don't know why, because it was all in Italian. Big Italian presence here. Why'd they come here? Mostly to build that. That's the new Croton Dam, completed in 1906. It's the third largest hand-hewn stone structure in the world, only behind the Great Wall of China and the Giza Pyramids. Go there. It's easy to go there and walk across the top and go, wow, look at that cool waterfall. Ooh, wait, see if up here. Go down to the bottom of the dam, walk right up to the edge and look up at it. It's massive. It's a gravity dam. Unlike a modern dam, like the Hoover Dam or something that's arched as part of its strength, it's just there on pure weight. It is as wide on the bottom as it is tall. It's a pyramid. And when you're standing there at the edge looking up, you're only about 1/3 of the way up the pyramid. There's still a third below you. It was an incredible feat. They did it by hand. And they lived there, right below the dam, what was called the Bowery. Unfortunately, the Black Hand was there as well. The Black Hand is the forerunner of what we call the Mafia and what the police call the La Cosa Nostra. And it's been an ugly stereotype attached to the Italians since. Every immigrant group has organized crime attached to it. The sad fact is they come with immigrant groups and they prey on their own. Sometimes through what's called an affinity scam, sometimes because they know they won't report to the police. It's terrible. It's not just the Italian community, it was every ethnic immigrant community had its own organized crime attached to it. Why they got stuck with it, you could probably thank Mario Puzo. I don't know. They started coming to Ossining. Jimmy, your grandfather worked on the dam? Your great-grandfather worked on the dam and Kensico Dam. Jimmy's family was from Calabria, southern Italy. Not so Sonora, but southern Italy. Very common. The first Ossining police officer, who was Italian, Pietro Florian, he wasn't allowed to call himself Pietro Florian. He was Peter Florian. And that's how he got the job as a police officer. Big deal, big deal. We all know Sassanora Plaza, right? Sassanora is a small village in Italy. There are more people in Ossining from Sassanora than there are in Sassanora. Sassanora is about 45 miles northeast of Naples. Back then, southern Italy was being crushed by poverty, and people had to leave. They didn't all come to America. There are a fair amount of Italian families in this village who have relatives in Australia because they just had to get out. They went to Australia, they went to Uruguay, they went to Argentina, Venezuela, and here. They just had to leave. They were in such bad conditions. Today, about 600 people live there. It's the Campanile region, Benevento province. The demonym is Sassonorisi. Sassonorisi is what a person is called who lives in Sassanora. And this is what it looks like. For some bizarre reason, there's snow on the ground. I can't imagine they get a whole lot of it. It's a hilltop. You know, surprisingly, a lot of these small villages where people live here now, Iron, Sassanora, Ahoskie, small villages similar to Ossining. Not huge, not in the middle of nowhere, outside major cities, just like us. That could be Yale Avenue. That's Sassanora, Italy. Sassy Deli. Sassy Drive. The Columbus Association down here. Here's a list of people who possibly, families that possibly came from Sassanora, some not directly. Pasquale, Conti, Rinaldi, Montague, Santucci, Imicelli, Duva, Polzella, Apollonio, Gagliardi, Salazzo, Polzella, Colantrello, Badia. If you grew up in Ossining, you know half those people. Gene Montague's a friend of mine. I worked with him in the police department. His family came from Sassanora. When they came to Ellis Island, his name was Montagna, with one of those funny little things above it. People in Ellis Island said, that's not going to fly here. People can't pronounce it, no one's going to write it, you better come up with another name. His great-grandmother loved Romeo and Juliet. So they became the Montagues, and they are Montague to this day. Boy, these guys got around. They really did. I don't think they emigrated directly to Ossining. I think they actually emigrated to places like New Bedford, Fall River, places like that. And then moved here for some reason, I don't know why. Probably for the same reason everybody else moves. One person in the family comes there, hey, I can get you a job, come on over. Joe Da Silva, who worked here with us, friend of ours, came over as 13 years old because his father was hired in the Italian bakery, which has been the Portuguese bakery as long as I can remember. He just went back. Of course, he'll be back here soon, but he came over here and he was 13 years old. Still a connection. And if you want to have the best paella in Westchester County, next Saturday, I suggest you go down to Spring and Main. Next Saturday, or is it a couple days? Saturday, go down there and you can get some excellent food. I can't recommend it enough. Next time you're down at the waterfront, that's from Portugal. There's a matching sculpture in Portugal. It's somehow a representation of fire. The fire department has a connection over there, and not that long ago they sent an entire box container of fire equipment to Portugal when they were experiencing all those fires. We have a strong connection. The police at one point, they had 3 guys who spoke fluent Portuguese. The Spanish-speaking guys used to say the Portuguese guys were the zhuzh guys. I don't know what that means. Some of the way they pronounce things, but it's very cool. Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, I don't know. Hispanic is a name invented by Richard Nixon's census takers to describe people. It's made up in 1970. Latino and Latinx has different connotations, different reasons. The only thing I can tell you is, it's not a monolith. Just because somebody speaks Spanish doesn't mean they're friends with someone else who speaks Spanish. Doesn't mean they're from the same place, doesn't mean they share the same culture. It's not a monolith. A lot of different folks here speak Spanish. A lot of them from Ecuador. Not all of them. When I first came here, back in the 70s, everybody who spoke Spanish was from Puerto Rico. Now it's different. Then the Dominican Republic, and now South America. Ecuador is on the equator. It's way down there. It was also at one point the smallest nation in OPEC. It looks like a really beautiful place. Most of the folks from here, from Ecuador, are from a province in the south called Azuay. The large town is called Cuenca, and the small village outside of it is called Yerón. And that's where it started from, that small village coming up here. That's Yerón. Could be Ossining. That's Cuenca. A UNESCO site. Also at 8,000 feet. 600,000 people live in that metropolitan area. It's huge. You know, ironically, that particular portion of Ecuador, 100 years ago, their main thing was Panama hats. Panama hats were not made in Panama. Panama hats were sold in Panama because that's where all the people were crossing over the isthmus, because that's where all the Americans, the big, fat, sweaty Americans dying in the sun, needed a hat. So they brought them there to sell them to them. That's why they're called Panama hats. They're from Ecuador. And Cuenca was one of the ones that had a whole industry. Panama hats are a deep wormhole of craziness if you want to go into them. Some are worth thousands of dollars. The best Panama hats can be rolled up and passed through a ring and then unrolled and put on your head. It's really kind of incredible. Not so much anymore. They were waylaid by cheap knockoffs from someplace else, but Panama hats started this part of Ecuador. It's really cool, and it's beautiful.
I didn't talk about all the immigrants in Ossining. I didn't talk about migration at all. But that was just some of the folks who come here as a group. Everybody here is from someplace else. I think that's important. I hope everyone remembers that. So regardless of what your political inclinations are, or what you think about the border, the reality is once people get here to Ossining, we welcome them. Because that's the kind of village this is. We should welcome them. This is the kind of village this is. So thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really enjoyed that. I know that you all did too. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is one of my favorite days of the year here at the Ossining Public Library, and I'm so happy and thrilled that you were able to join us for it. Everyone have a good night. Thanks so much.